helping helping organizations or individuals better understand what are the issues around harassment, etc., that have come to the fore in the sector. We've been working to develop that course with about, I think, about 30 or more organizations. And obviously, it's been a sort of labor of love to actually go through the process of making sure everyone's thoughts and comments and questioning and etc. are included in that 1.5 hour course. But at the same time, it means that when we come to the end of that course, we know that this is a course that will be relevant to those particular organizations, and that they will be actually using it. It's no point for us to create learning for the sake of creating learning. We really want to make sure that it is actually used, and building that coalition of organizations as we build the course is really important to us.
That's another observation of mine as an outsider in this industry. Is it at first this might feel like there's an opportunity for a lot of inefficiencies when you have these complex partner networks, and there's sort of a lot of convening goes on to establish standards and drive efficient and to establish a common set of standards, and it feels inefficient. Mm-hmm. But in a way, it's necessary to make sure that the rigor's in place and the accountability's in place around these kind of operations. There's one other thing that you mentioned, Nick, about your setting up of channels or networks in the global South, and I've learned that there's a big sort of focus in this industry, in this sector, to sort of move towards building capacity at the point of need, and hopefully pull us away from constantly sending in kind of resources from the West to fix problems and make progress, and then sort of retreating and leaving the country in the long term no better off. This kind of pivot to the global South is a phrase that I hear a lot. Can you tell us about your efforts around that and how you're using these kind of little for-profit model networks in the global South? How many of these networks do you have, and can you just describe them for me?
Sure. So we currently have 4 what we call network members let's start from scratch. So we currently have 4 network members in the Philippines, in Bangladesh, in Lebanon, and in Kenya. And they're both looking after either a particular country or a particular region. And the idea is for them to deliver our business in those particular locations. Now, the idea behind building this network of organizations in the global South is actually recognizing that we don't really know those contexts necessarily as well as they do. And I think that's probably quite an evident thing to say. But we don't actually know what they really need. And I think the drive for, understanding what it is that is needed, what it is that is required in terms of learning, what it is that is required in terms of the response for local populations is obviously much better understood by people from that particular area. So we've built those we've supported the building of those network members on top of organizations that already exist, and some of them are quite big. So in Bangladesh, yes, for example, our what we call our network member is BRAC, which is the biggest NGO in the world. They've got about 100,000 staff, and they are reaching quite significant amount of people, be it in Bangladesh or elsewhere. So I mean, comparatively, we're micro, very much micro compared to them. But I think they've taken on, and they've always been working and developing and having that drive to working with the community from the get-go. And I think they have a much better understanding of what the needs are in Bangladesh than what it is. And I think on that note as well, I think what we're trying to do is not only, provide them with some basic tools that they can then, learning tools that they can then take and shift and do whatever they want with it, including courses. So, for example, the core humanitarian standards, they have been translated in Bangla. But Bangla is obviously, we've got no idea about Bangla, so they have taken it and just done their own thing with it, and that's the right way to look at it. And in the Philippines, they've done the same with some of the other courses that we've done, and they have developed courses that we hadn't really thought necessarily in advance that these were the kind of things that they were looking for. So they have developed in the Philippines a business continuity management course that they have made. Obviously, that is very localized for the Philippines, but that they've taken to not only to medium and small and medium-sized enterprises in the Philippines, but also to cooperatives. In the Philippines, these are those kind of corner shops in the Philippines, and this course has really taken off quite significantly to the point that actually it has been made into a law that in the Philippines that those cooperatives should have some form of business continuity management set up in their in how they are set up.
So this is really fascinating for me, because I think this pivot to the south, as people call it, is sometimes framed up as the need to localize, right? And it's localize with a capital L, and that is kind of operate from within the culture and around the standards of the people that you're serving, rather than sort of bringing foreign aid that might not necessarily know the best way to sort of execute and manage things locally because of different culture and different kind of assumptions. So the term for this is localization. And how that plays out for you, it seems, is you've got these organizations that are landing your content and your programs in a given country, but they're also contributing back both localization with a small L, like taking your material and translating it and making it relevant locally, but also generating net new ideas and new knowledge sets that can be managed by you, but deployed by them. Am I sketching it out in the right kind of way then?
That's absolutely right. And I think, so this is what is, generally termed as global to local. So that's sort of what we've been doing. And then they have been doing the local to global, or even the local to local. So, for example, that business continuity management course in the Philippines that has been developed is something that could be very well translated, say, in Bangladesh, and would probably make quite a lot of sense to be translated or contextualized for the local context in Bangladesh. And another example for that would be our center network member or a center in Bangladesh has been delivering a cyclone preparedness program to quite
unique to that geography, right? Yeah.
And obviously, cyclones are not restricted to Bangladesh. They exactly. They happen in lots of different places. So for us, very obviously, this is learning that they could take in Bangladesh and actually say to an organization in, say, Mozambique, who had recently, or not so recently, but this year at least, a cyclone hitting them, and saying, by the way, we have this course learning that we have developed. I think maybe it might be useful for you, rather than for you to start from scratch. Maybe there is something that you can take from here that will be useful. Same in the Bahamas. There may be some items in there that might be interesting for them to have actually to be actually using from that course that has been developed in Bangladesh. And it's trying to kind of weave those connections and convening the right people to make sure that those exchanges happen, which is really important, and which is something that we are trying to do.
There are lots of great examples on your website and in your impact report of how organizations are using your resources and your platform to do their work more efficiently and to build capacity locally. And I love those stories. And we don't have a lot of time to go into all those stories, but is there a piece of work that the Academy's done that you feel is really exemplary and that you think has moved the ball forward in terms of this agenda of building local capacity?
I think so, and I'm not sure it's actually in the impact report.
Even better, even fresh material is good. Yeah,
fresh material, absolutely. And that's the project that we've been working on in South Sudan. And essentially, this has been looking at developing the capacity of local NGOs in South Sudan. So we set out. We have this product, which is our organizational learning services, which is helping organizations build a solid foundation for learning. Through policies, systems, processes, etc. And obviously, you're then taking that to a location, South Sudan, where those systems may not exist with those NGOs. So it's kind of trying to figure out, okay, how can we build systems, policies, and processes that will enable you to be more effective in the way that you deliver your programs. And so we as we developed that model, we originally had in mind that we would, be able to reach maybe 10 or 15 organizations, or 10 or 15 organizations might be interested. But actually, as we reached out in South Sudan through our networks, we suddenly had over 90 organizations that said, well, actually, we don't have that, and we think this is key for us in order to be able, of course, to better deliver on what we're delivering, but also to be better able to receive potentially some funding from external sources, which we otherwise don't have access to. So, helping them with program management, project management, financial management, reporting requirements, and all of that. And so I think, so we are, slowly building a sort of expertise around delivering those kind of services, and starting with South Sudan, and we're now looking at a much bigger project based on that. That's basically saying, actually, what we have done here in South Sudan, we can do it in many more countries and with many more organizations, and looking at, not only the individual impact that we may have on one organizations, is looking at, what is the collective impact that our program has in South Sudan. If you have 20 organizations who are better systems, who have got better systems, policies, etc., obviously you create a systemic way for those organizations to actually respond, and you, by the very nature as well, you enable international organizations to actually retreat and say, you know what, actually, we are not really needed here. There is full capacity here to actually deliver on those particular programs here. So this is work in progress, but I think it's really indicative of the way that we are trying to work, and hopefully in 1 or 2 years we'll see really the difference that we have made there and the impact that we've had.
And do you land that program with partners, with Sudanese or local NGO partners, part of your networks?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So we're working locally with the network of NGO, the NGO network of South Sudan, and so that's really local NGOs that we're working with, and we've had one colleague obviously going there just to kind of go through the motions, preparing those bespoke solutions for those particular organizations. And what was interesting though is coming back to that piece around, we don't actually know what their needs are, is that they actually then ended up taking that product that we provided them for them to better understand what their learning needs were and how better to build the capacity, and actually said, okay,